Welcome back to Sonic Creations, everyone. First, I do want to say, for any newcomers to the channel, we'd love to have you as a creator here. We do discussion videos. I have my own Sonic animated series, currently working on the finale for Sonic Cybernetics, which is like the third arc or chapter in that series. So there's a lot of projects in the works. There's a lot of things going on. So we'd love to have you here to discuss lore, storytelling, characterization, game design. I cover a lot of topics here. But anyway, today I wanted to discuss one character in particular, which is Fang the Sniper, or Fang the Hunter as he's now known. This is a character that I always knew I wanted to tell stories with, and so when there was finally a model available in the workshop, I was like, this is the time where I can tell a story with other characters that are more of like oddball characters that we don't usually get to see, and so I wanted to explore something with them. I do want to walk through a few things with this character. So back in Sonic Doomsday, which was the first arc of this story, Fang heard about what was going on with Mecha Sonic and that there was a bounty on Mecha Sonic and he wanted to collect, obviously. I very much portrayed him how he's portrayed everywhere else in this regard, which is that he is a bounty hunter. He will do whatever it takes to get what he wants. He has a bit of a narcissistic quality to him where he thinks very highly of himself and like he's the best of the best and no one can do it better than him. I think where things start to differ though, the relationship between Team Hooligan, which if you don't know, Team Hooligan is the name of his team, which comprises of him, Fang the Hunter, and then Bean the Dynamite and Bark the Polar Bear. So these are characters that have not really been well established unless you look at something like the Archie comics where they were modernized and given pretty decent characterization from what I read. So I sort of wanted to add some more layers to what's going on with them in terms of their relationship to each other. Because in my canon, what I sort of have in my head is that they all found each other when they were much younger and they were at a very low point in their lives and they really didn't think they would amount to anything. And so Fang sort of came in, took the pyromaniac Bean the Dynamite and the potentially failed boxer Bark the Polar Bear, took these two guys that were down on their luck and said, hey, we can do great things. Fuck doing things the right way. Let's just do it our way. I'll teach you guys my way, you know? And so he sort of taught them everything they know about this very degenerate life of just stealing, bounty hunting, working for Dr. Eggman, all these sort of things that are just not good. And he led them down this path, promising that I'm gonna take care of you, and together we'll be so strong we can do anything we set our minds to. And so that's sort of the backdrop of what's going on with Fang and his team. And now in Sonic Doomsday, we see them at a different kind of low point, where Bark and Fang are now in disagreement about their team, which is really like a family at this point. They sort of grew up together and they've been through hell. And I think that's why there's so much resentment on each side when they part ways, because Bark, and I'm gonna make my own separate video on him, but he's a character who is tired of this way of life. He's grown out of it, and he also realizes that if they keep going the way they're going, there won't be a future for them. You know, Gun, G-U-N, is on their tail, is trying to capture them, and if they can't capture them, they're probably gonna end up killing them, right? If things get out of hand enough, it can happen. And so Bark is thinking, you know, you're not really looking out for us anymore. You know, you were at the beginning, but this is different now. Now we're just risking it all for nothing. There's more to life than whatever this is. Bark is just feeling very unfulfilled and unsatisfied in his life, and so he parts ways with the group. But Fang is like, after everything I did for us, I took care of us, I took care of you, and this is such a betrayal. And I think even beyond the betrayal aspect of it, he finds resentment in that Bark can just suddenly switch and think that everything he did in his past is just magically erased because he goes to join Sonic and his friends.
And what's even the difference, eh? What's so different about the way you live your life now than the way we used to? We're still both taking things that don't belong to us. What's this new life you speak of? I would love to see it.
There's a huge resentment inside of Fang, and I think that's something you'll see in his character a lot, is that on top of all the other ways he's messed up in the head, this is what's really brought him to a boiling point, where he either admits that maybe Bark has a point, which he is too narcissistic to do, right? So he goes in the other direction. He goes far in the other direction. And he says, no, we have to do more. We have to go deeper. Show him that he's wrong. We're gonna go take over the world, you know? And that's why he ends up working with Eggman Nega and Sonic Cybernetics, a character that, of course, we know as the audience is a very selfish character and doesn't really care about Fang and Bean, but is using them for his own benefit. But Fang is too narcissistic to see that. He thinks, oh, Eggman really needs my help and we're gonna do so many cool things together. Similar mindset he had when he recruited Bark and Bean to begin with, right? He thinks he's being let in on something that's really going to be great for him. So the same way that he promised to take care of Bark and Bean, now Eggman Nega is promising to take care of them in the same way. So it's almost like this Russian doll effect of like the way these characters are affecting each other. So you really start to see the layers being peeled back on Fang. You really start to see his flaws more as the show goes on. At the beginning, he just seems like the average bounty hunter. He's just buying some weapons from Vinny, who's a character that is like a Sonic Forces avatar creation that I just gave a name, and now he's an official character in my show. He's also like this salesman. He collects weapons and he sells them to everyone, and he's like a huge fan of Sonic. And I'm gonna make a video on Vinny probably further in the future from now because I have a lot of other characters to get through first. But yeah, we see him buying weapons, bounty hunting. But then as Doomsday goes on, even you start to see that conflict finally is like Bark already left, but then accidentally runs into Fang whenever he's having that meet with Vinny, pretty much on the brink of death, right? He's dehydrated, he's beaten down, he's injured, and Fang sees him at a low. So what does Fang do? He does what he does best. He takes him back in. So it's almost like for a second there, everything's back to normal, and maybe he's hoping that Bark will just drop this whole thing about leaving the group and he'll come back, right? And then we actually see, this is the time in the series where we see one glimpse of hope, something good inside of Fang in all the bad. He helps Gun and Bark protect the city from the egg fleet that Mecha Sonic is sending to attack it. Now, this is a good thing that he's doing, but at the same time, not really, because he's really just doing it to impress Bark. Sure, he's helping out Gun, he's helping out the city, he's protecting the people. It all seems good on paper if you look at it from a surface level, but going deeper, he kind of feels like this is his chance to get Bark back into the group. He's a valuable asset, he's very strong, he's very smart, and he completes the team. And also, he's family, he doesn't want him to go, but I think he's thinking about it in more of a materialistic around this time, which is just like, hey, he's too valuable of an asset to lose, so I'm just going to do what he wants me to do, even though deep down I'm really doing what I want to do, which is to stick around and maybe get that bounty on Mecha Sonic, and maybe after all the fighting is said and done, I can sneak in and just take him for myself and sell him off and get my payday. That's all he's really thinking about. He's doing it to sort of hook Bark back into the group and falsely prove to him that like, hey, I am open to this new way of life that you are open to, you know? I can do good things just like Sonic and his friends can do good things. Like, there is a little bit of that. It's a manipulation. And I think when Bark asks him, hey, was that all for the bounty, or were you actually invested in what we were doing? Did you really want to help the city, or are you just in it for yourself?
So, are we not gonna address the elephant in the room? What are you talking about? Did you come with us to help defend the city, or to collect your bounty? You're already asking me that question. You know what? You think just because you went off with Sonic and his pals that all of a sudden you're better than us, but you're not. Truth is, we're criminals. Nothing's changed.
And what that flashback in Cybernetics reveals is that, oh, it really was just that he was in it for himself. And so from the audience perspective, you go, this guy's got some issues. He's not really a good friend, but to be fair, he doesn't try to deny it, because he also wants that truth to hit Bark, that this is the reality of the situation. We can do good things, but also have something in it for ourselves, you know? And really, it's not a good way to think about being a hero. You shouldn't always be expecting a reward right around every corner. That doesn't make you a good person. And I think Bark is really desperately in need for some positive energy and for him to be able to grow into this hero that we see him grow into, taking all the energy that he spends caring about this family that has become broken and putting that towards a new family, which would actually really benefit from his type of energy. You see that when he jumps in front of Shadow, even though Shadow probably would have survived that laser beam from Mechasonic, he jumps in front of it because he knows that Shadow's the only one probably that can stop him at this point, especially considering Sonic is dead, right? Or they think he's permanently gone forever, right? So of course that's going to be what he thinks. Of course that's going to be what he does in that moment. And I think it shows how Bark differs from Fang, because Fang would be far too selfish to do anything like that. He would not sacrifice himself for his friends. And because he still hasn't achieved his goal, I think if you can die for something, you've truly lived your life to the fullest. Whereas if you're constantly in complete fear of death, it's like there's something left that you haven't done or that you haven't fulfilled in your life. And for the story of Sonic Revolution, he had basically no part in it. I didn't intend for that to be the case. I think I just had enough on my plate dealing with the whole Fleetway Supersonic plotline and all the other plotlines that were going on. I didn't have time to jump in and check on that character because I just hadn't written anything for his character to be doing during that time. But I knew I was going to swing back around to him in Sonic Cybernetics, which I did. And now I would say he's probably one of the most prominent main characters in the show. And this is actually part of the fun of the show, is that there's not necessarily a set of main characters. It's kind of like any of the characters can be main characters if I design it that way. And it gives me a lot of freedom, but it also allows each project to have different qualities to them. Like if you really want to see more of Mighty the Armadillo, it's like, well, he's going to be more heavily featured in Sonic Cybernetics versus his role in Revolution, which was much smaller. Characters like Scourge, you're going to get a lot more of him in Revolution and Doomsday than you are in Cybernetics. You know, there's very much a passing of the torch that happens each arc I make, where I'm like, all right, who's going to really get most of the screen time? Which characters do I really want to explore and dive deeper into? And that's why Fang has been such a fun character to write and voice act, because, I don't know, he's just so much fun to voice act, and I can't get enough of him. So not only is he like really good for comedic relief, and he's also a great villain, which are already two great things, he also still has room for growth and character development. He's not set in stone. He's not always going to be this way. I could make him that way, but I am planning some changes for his character. Not anything drastic like Scourge, where he kind of throws a 180, but more so that there are some aspects of him that are going to change and grow, and you're definitely going to see that whenever we get to Sonic Aftermath, which, if you're not aware, is the next story arc after Sonic Cybernetics. So that's pretty much Fang's character. There's a lot of resentment built up in there. There's a lot of broken family energy to him, but also his narcissism, his ego is his downfall. And I would say that's where him and Eggman sort of connect in that way as villains. That's a trait that they share, that their ego is their downfall. And usually that is, no matter what the story is, you can trace it back to that character flaw. And so subconsciously, I always know that I have that somewhere in the back of my mind when I'm writing for his character. I think in Sonic Cybernetics Episode 5, we see pretty much the most climactic point of their relationship between Bark and Fang, of how their friendship is falling apart, to the point where Fang is even considering killing him. You know, he definitely had finally just had it with him getting in the way, and how stubborn Bark is, because that's something I'm going to get into, is that Bark is extremely stubborn and hard-headed. Instead of taking that little setup that he did to them, where he basically led them into a gun military base and then framed them for murder, which at a time where, in my canon, the Mobians are very much trying to not come off like they're just destructive creatures and that they can be members of society and share the planet with the humans. You know, this is a very sensitive time based on the past two arcs that had just happened. So that happening to them in Sonic Cybernetics Episode 3 was a huge blow to the Mobians as a whole. That should have been enough for them to be like, we shouldn't do any more before things get any more out of hand, because God knows what Fang has planned for us, you know? And so he didn't take that warning, which was really more than a warning, but he didn't accept that defeat. And even though Fang has more of the Chaos Emeralds than he does, he's still desperately trying to do this because Bark has something to prove as well. But that's something I'll save in the next video whenever I cover his character, which will probably be either the next one or the one after. But I think that's all I have to say about Fang's character. I'm sure I missed a few things here and there. Thank you guys so much for watching if you made it this far. Really appreciate you. Let me know what you guys think of this character in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Not just based on my canon version of him, but just any version of him. He's definitely one of my fan favorites. Boy, does that Australian accent just really fit him. I can't imagine anyone not doing that when voicing his character. It's such a suiting voice for his character, and he's got such a beautiful aesthetic, such a great character design. Basically the same thing, I'm repeating myself, but yeah, what a character, and I'm just so happy that I'm able to tell a story with him that is still ongoing. Haven't completed his arc yet, but we're getting close. We'll definitely be completing it by the end of the next arc, but yeah, that's all I have to say. I'll see you guys in the next video, creators. Peace out.